Real Moms Talking Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the Real Moms Talking. In today's episode, we are exploring the ways of passing food culture to our children and how different the views of food are across cultures. So for me, growing up in Serbia, the food I ate at home was really deeply connected to the culture I was raised in. And it was not only the meals themselves, but the tradition around them and the role food plays in our community. Because, food tells us a powerful story, revealing a culture's history, values that are present in that society, and also generally the way life is lived in that society. And for me, passing down these traditions from both my Serbian roots and my husband's Cuban heritage to our children is just as important as teaching them language or other customs. And since we live in Germany, we really make it our priority to share these traditions with our kids so they can understand it even better. And I'll share how we navigate our unique family blend of food traditions and what it looks like at our dinner table, as well as give you some ideas on how you could incorporate your own traditions into your own day-to-day routine to pass them to your kids. And if you're curious to hear more, grab a cup of coffee or tea and settle in for what's coming. While I was preparing this episode, I was actually thinking how the tradition of preparing food in any way, if it's cooking or baking, has been around for so many centuries, and that people were constantly finding ways to make their meals more flavorful because, they just wanted to enjoy it. And over time, I think that various cultures developed their own unique traditions. So the habits and recipes nowadays differ across cultures. What might seem perfectly normal in one culture is really seen very unusual in another. And my husband and me, we lived this experience so many times firsthand. For example, in Cuba, it's very common to eat plátanos or bananas with any cooked meal. So banana with meat in sauce that is served with the rice or rice with beans. And there are also many different kinds of bananas in Cuba, like plátano macho or plátano burro, which are used then to prepare tostones or chips that you could use as a cider to the meal. But if there is no special banana available, they would use just a regular banana that they call plátano fruto, and they would just peel the banana and put it on the side together with a meat and rice meal that is served. And in Serbia, we typically don't serve it on the side with a meal. In contrast, we usually eat banana as a dessert or snack. So I think when my husband peels the banana and puts it alongside his lunch, it's still for me very strange to see that. But on the other hand, for example, in Serbia, we really love to drink white yogurt. It's not too salty, it's not too sweet, and it's somewhat like Greek yogurt that you can drink. And for my Cuban husband, this is total no-go, because he could not imagine to drink yogurt unless it's fruit yogurt. But it's not just about these different recipes or different habits that people have that are coming together with culture and food, but it's sometimes also about the traditions that surround even the simplest meal. And if I think of traditions, one of the stuff that comes first to my mind is that the way how we celebrate stuff in Serbia and Cuba is very different. And I'm pretty sure my husband would agree that this is one big difference we noticed over years. Because in Serbia, no matter the occasion, whether it's birthday or wedding or the childbirth, or really any celebration, and we really, I think, celebrate everything or search occasion to celebrate everything, there must be always abundance of food and drinks. And I can't emphasize enough how important it is to us Serbians. It's better to have too much and have some food left over, which usually means we are eating leftovers from the celebration food for days, than to run out of anything. It's a way, I think, of showing hospitality by ensuring your guests are well fed. And my husband find it hard to understand that, but over the years he learned to embrace it. And now when we prepare for a party, he let me do it my way, over prepare food, knowing that it makes me feel like a good host. And I think I unconsciously transmit this to our kids as well. And they also see it and live it with my family when we visit Serbia. And another thing that is very typical in Serbia is coffee. Maybe it's because of the influence of Ottoman Empire, but I think that coffee really plays a central role in Serbian culture because so much happens over coffee. Problems are solved, business is done, you make friendships, even you can fall in love over a cup of coffee. And if you want to meet someone, we usually just invite them for coffee. I remember when my brother-in-law was visiting Serbia and he was asked from some of our relatives if he wants to join for coffee. And he kind of said no. And when we asked him later why, he just explained that he really doesn't like to drink coffee. It was a funny moment for me and this aha moment because Cubans love coffee and drink it a lot, but there is no tradition of inviting people for coffee as an indirect way of asking them to spend time with them. And in Serbia, it doesn't matter really what you're gonna drink. You almost always invite people for coffee. And these are few stuff that are, for me, the most striking when it comes to Serbia and our food meal traditions. But what are the cultural practices and traditions when it comes to food and drinks in Cuba? There I have few funny experiences. And one is, well, on our second visit, I think, since I'm a big lover of daiquiri cocktail, I use every opportunity when we are in Cuba to try the original one. So I ordered one cocktail at the beach bar, and the bartender was preparing me the cocktail, and when he was about to pour the rum, he started pouring it. And at some point I asked my husband, when is this guy gonna stop adding rum? Because it seems too much to me. And when my husband asked the bartender, he just stopped adding rum and he looked into him and he commented that he was just waiting for us to tell him when to stop. So it was his way of showing friendly gesture to show hospitality by letting us to decide how much rum we want in the cocktail. But since I didn't know the tradition or I didn't know the customs, it came off a little bit surprising for me. And also now that I'm thinking of that visit, there is something about visiting restaurants in Cuba that it's maybe in a way it's funny, but on the other hand, when I think more of it, it's kind of sad. And the thing is that since visiting restaurants in Cuba, it's rather expensive for people living there, and then it's not so common to go to the restaurant on an everyday occasion, but people go rather when they have birthday. So if you are in a restaurant in Cuba, the chances are that there will be one, but rather two or three or more cumpleaños feliz songs sang by a waiter that is bringing a cake for guests that are in the restaurant. And that's something that it's very specific, I would say, and it's really typical there, but leaves this little sadness in you when you think that actually the people are only going to the restaurants for their birthday. But something that definitely is very different in Cuba in comparison to Serbia is that people eat very light breakfast. They usually drink a glass of fresh juice or milk and maybe eat some toast with butter on it or something similar. And on the other hand, dinner is a time where whole family is together eating. There is the cooked meal, usually pork marinated in onion, garlic, and lemon. A lot of lemon is served. And I'm joking, but the way Cubans prepare meat is just delicious. They absolutely always marinate meat, which is not the case in Serbia. So in Cuba, you marinate meat even if you're going to put it on the grill. And there is, of course, rice served with it. And the amounts of rice which one person can eat are impressive for me because Serbians are more about meat with potato and bread, and rice is not so much on our recipe list. So I think with me telling you all these stories about what we do in Serbia, what's done in Cuba, you're getting the feeling how different our cultures are and cuisine as well in Serbia and Cuba. And yet we made it somehow work. We established some kind of normal. Even before kids, my husband and me found what we both enjoy to eat, to cook and eat, what each of us can eat because the other one really, really likes it, and what each of us has to prepare only for their self because the other one can not possibly bear to eat that. And we also, with time, found out what each of us loves from the cuisine of the other. Like, for example, I absolutely love ropa vieja. It's a pulled beef in some kind of typical Cuban tomato-based sauce. And it's, of course, served with rice, which we do eat quite a lot since my husband is used to it. And I find it kind of healthy and easy to prepare given that we have rice cooker. And another food that I personally really like from Cuba is melitones. It's a baked sweets with almonds, and they're so delicious. And my husband fell in love with the way we prepare ribs in Serbia when we were visiting once, and he by chance just ordered ribs in the honey sauce, and he was just in love with it. He still orders it every time that we visit. But he also likes when I prepare, for example, moussaka, which is a typical Serbian mincemeat potato meal baked in the oven, similar to lasagna somewhat, but instead of dough, you use potatoes. And we, of course, eat cevapi and burek every time we visit Serbia. And since my husband doesn't like ajvar, which is a typical paprika-based sauce, which you can smear on bread or eat as a cider, that's something we have in the fridge only for me. And then the kids came along, and with our oldest son, we tried introducing him to a variety of flavors. At the same time, we were also creating new family traditions and recipes that suited us. As I often say, since our group of friends is so diverse, our holiday celebrations are even more multicultural. We gather together and celebrate the richness of the differences we bring along, sharing stories about traditions and food people typically eat in different cultures and in different parts of the world. And I think this diverse mix has helped make our kids open-minded when it comes to food. Even our oldest, who is usually hesitant to try new stuff, he's more willing to explore and try new food because he's discovered so many new flavors and so many times he liked what he tried new. Whenever my husband or I feel nostalgic for Serbia or Cuba, we head to the kitchen to recreate the smells of home and childhood. And almost always the kids join in, helping with tasks like washing or peeling vegetable and preparing dough. I particularly love baking kiflice with kids, a pastry made from dough where we use yeast to make it rise, filled with jam or cheese. And it's a wonderful way to share with them how I used to make this same kiflice with my grandmother. It's heartwarming to see how much they enjoy this food and also preparing the food with us. Also, we kind of created a tradition of baking pizza from scratch since our oldest son was baby. And it is so much something normal for them that when we once recently bought a prepared dough because we wanted to do it fast and simple, our both sons were complaining that they miss our pizza, our normal pizza. They also know when Papa is in the kitchen, Cuban spices are around, and when Mama is cooking, there are Serbian spices in the pot. I love that among our 3 kids, we have found in at least one of them partner to share our passion for a certain food, both me and my husband. For example, our oldest son loves Serbian cheeses, cevapcici and ajvar. And when kids are cooking with Dad, they're almost always listening to the music. Sometimes it's reggaeton vibes, sometimes salsa, but it is mainly about music, I think, spicing up the experience of cooking. That's their way of cooking and sharing tradition with Dad. And kids absolutely love it. They sometimes even end up dancing after they're done cooking or while the food is preparing. We share so much with our kids when it comes to food and tradition during our visits to our home countries. And they get to try authentic dishes, some of which we don't typically prepare at home, since they're sometimes complicated to prepare or the ingredients are hard to find. And sometimes they discover new things about themselves, food they love from our cultures that they've never knew about. And it may sound silly, but once by chance, when we were visiting my family, the kids tried pasulj prebranac, a thick baked bean soup, and they absolutely loved it. And it's funny for me because it's such a simple meal that I don't think many people find special, but they were just thrilled. The same thing happened in Cuba with our middle son. When he tried guava for the first time, he was hooked. But speaking of guava, there are also opposite experiences with the new food. Last autumn, when we were in Cuba, our oldest son, he found a coconut at the beach and he was thrilled. It felt so special and cool to him that he found it. Of course, in Cuba, coconuts are everywhere and it's quite common to find them. Nevertheless, he was excited to try it. When we got back from the beach, Dad and the boys, they cracked open the coconut with a special knife designed for that purpose, I think. They peeled it and then cracked it open again to reveal the coconut meat and water inside. And our oldest son tried, finally, coconut water and found it a bit strange. Not to say that he didn't like it, but on the other hand, they got to keep the coconut shells grandma washed it and prepared it so that now they sometimes can use it as a cup or jar to eat muesli or drink something from it. So it's a nice and cool reminder of our adventure in Cuba. Sometimes it feels like there is so much we could and should share with our kids in terms of cooking and food. And it feels sometimes that there is no enough time for it, or it's hard to choose what to show them, what to cook them, or cook with them. But then again, you realize that there is always enough time for it. There will always be tomorrow and chances to try new stuff. And I believe that even when we are not intentionally focusing on sharing our heritage through food, it happens naturally. Our food preferences, our cravings, and the recipe we love are so closely tied to where we come from. And just yesterday, for example, while figuring out what to make for lunch, seeing minced meat in the fridge, I remembered how much both my husband and I love çufte, Serbian-style meatballs in tomato sauce, and we serve it normally with mashed potatoes or potato puree. And I decided to make them. And not only that we enjoyed it, but we also discovered one more dish that every member of the family loved. Even our dog, Coco, who was sneaking bits from under the table. What I'm trying to say with this is that most of the sharing is actually happening organically. However, I truly believe that involving our kids in the preparation process, whether it's cooking or baking or even peeling coconuts, is a part of helping them develop the same passion for the meals we love. Because after all, we don't enjoy this food because of how they taste only, but they are filled with so many cherished memories of time spent with our parents, with our grandparents, and other people we care about. I hope this gives you a glimpse into what life looks like in our kitchen and around our dinner table. And if you have any questions or thoughts, don't hesitate to reach out. And if you have your own experience, whether similar or completely different, about growing up in a multinational family and the food traditions that come with it, I'd love to hear from you about it. And if you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more like it, be sure to hit the follow button so you never miss another episode. And feel free to share it with your friends and colleagues. Let them know about the unique stories they can discover on Real Moms Talking.